Okay, our last session of the day. Again, really excited about this. A lot of you know Akhtar Badshah, but he was a long time at Microsoft Philanthropies. He's Global Washington board member. He's going to be joined by Cole Harvey, who is at the Evans School. Yay, Evans School. I know there's other alumni here, including me. Lacey, there she is. Lacey is at USA for UNHCR. Again, talking about what has been on a lot of our minds around technology and AI for global development. So go ahead.
Thank you. You guys see me again. Yeah, I don't know why I got roped into this, but here we go. No, it's actually kind of a great opportunity. This is the messiness of events, and we are going to try and create something on the fly. I do want to thank my friend and colleague Jane Messick to help me quickly figure out what an exciting conversation to close out this day would look like. So I greatly appreciate that she quickly jumped in and made some suggestions that we are able to take. But before I jump into that, I just have a few quick thoughts. It's been a fantastic day. And the Global Washington team does an amazing job putting all of this together. The speakers, the sessions, the conversations, the moderators. So I really want to take the time as a board member of Global Washington to not only just appreciate Kristen, but all of the team members and the amazing volunteers that we've had throughout the day that has helped us with this. So please give them a round of applause. Okay, I can signal to put this further up. How's that? Yes? No?
Is it on?
Oh, I don't think it's on.
My side is on. Oh, it's on.
Get a green light.
It is on. Ooh. Okay, maybe I need to move it down now. How's that? All right. So, technology, nonprofits. We've been dealing with this for decades now. It's not new. Technology has been around. Nonprofits have existed. Our issues of lack of funding, lack of support, no money for operations. We can talk all day about co-creation, but nobody funds us to do any co-creation. We can talk about technology. Nobody gives us any money for technology. And I talk to my friends, oh, you're in the nonprofit sector, so you really don't need any money. Yeah, there is no free air for me. So, but why is this conversation today even more important than what we've been having? Exponential technologies, machine learning, AI, the madness surrounding AI, are all leading to some very critical divisions. Earlier we had this gap, the digital divide. Now it's actually an exponential divide. And we have the super haves and the super have-nots. I could teach in some ways, when we were at Microsoft, take a machine and a donkey into a village and can teach a grandmother how to send an email to her grandkids somewhere. But today, I can't do that and get somebody in a village at that level to code for AI. So we're creating this super haves and super have-nots. But our role as nonprofit leaders, those that exist in this community, can be the bridge. between the haves, the super haves, and the super have-nots. So I'm going to have this conversation with my two colleagues who jumped to the fray, into the fire, just because I asked them.
Surprise.
Yeah, I know. Surprise. I got asked. I get to ask. I said yes. I got others to say yes. Cole is a student of mine. He was in class. He got a text. I need 3 slides. Can you get me these 3 slides? And can you show up here?
During finals week.
It's final. By the way, he's about to graduate. So if you're looking for somebody that will actually deliver stuff for you, he's the man.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, let's not go there. Okay, that's a bridge too far to cross. No. And the reason why he is here is our keynote speaker, Eric Arnold, and his team had actually been working with my student team, and Cole was part of that team, to actually do some work for them around understanding artificial intelligence and the nonprofit sector. And they actually did their presentation to that team yesterday. And there are some very interesting findings that they have had from interviews that they did with a large number of nonprofit organizations, asking them how they think about artificial intelligence, technology, and the nonprofit sector. So I'm going to ask him to share some of the findings.
Thank you.
Before you start, hold on. Before you jump in. I know, and he is ready, and he should be. Lacey, we heard this morning from USA, UNHCR, and the work that they're doing. And May, she's right there at the back. She gave a fabulous talk in the morning. So May, again, thank you so much for the work that you are doing for refugees and the refugee community. But what is also very interesting is that they have been using technology, machine learning, artificial intelligence, drones, and other technologies, both to service the community that they work in and for the organization itself. So that's why these two are the ones that are actually going to make sense. I am your filler. So with that, Cole, talk to us about some things that you found.
Will do. And before I start, I just want to give my full team a shout out. They're not with me today, but I'm standing on the shoulders of our group research that we accomplished together. We got this case study back in September. We knew we had around 8 weeks to get what Microsoft was referring to as a sentiment analysis for just feelings around AI tools, automated tools in the nonprofit sector. As a student, when you're given something like this, our first thoughts were just like, how do we look at this? Well, initially, we'd want to do a literature review, but this is a pretty new topic where, especially when we're talking about how we're feeling about AI tools, we're kind of still figuring that out. So we knew a lot of our research would have to come from primary research survey findings. My teammates did a ton of work looking at like social media posts, blog posts, webinars like this that were recorded, listening to those, and kind of gathering sentiments, as well as putting together a survey. I'm glad you actually gave the folks some time to look at the results we have here. We only had 23 respondents for our survey, so not a ton. It's not randomized, but it's coming from students, not Microsoft. This should give them a kind of seed to build on. And I want to tell you a little bit about who we talked to. So most of the folks who responded to our survey, they'd been working in the sector for more than 5 years, so pre a lot of the ChatGPT AI boom. Over half of the people that we talked to were working with nonprofits that were grant funded. This goes back to Akhtar's mention of funding is such an important piece in the nonprofit space. And we'll come back to this on our recommendations too. Surprisingly, and this could have been because of the demographics that we talked to, people were really comfortable using AI tools, and people felt overwhelmingly positive about use of AI tools. These are 100% of the respondents. Nobody felt negative that we talked to, which is different from some of the research we found online. We think this is mainly because a lot of our respondents were kind of higher up in their organizations, so future research could definitely hinge on the people who are doing that person-to-person work and getting a better idea of how they're feeling. If I could have the next slide, please. So those are our quantitative findings. We had a lot of thoughts looking back at some of the research that we'd done. We tried to hold some what we would call sense-making interviews and just kind of shared our findings with the folks that we talked to. We didn't have a ton of these. We only had 3, but luckily they were pretty diverse. So we talked to somebody in the data space. They were working for a not-for-profit that provides data. They basically clean data and provide public data in a form that's easier to work with that a lot of nonprofits use. They talked about the importance of AI specifically here when you're working with that public data. It's really applicable, and how vital it was for that data dissemination. Just making sure that the engineers at this not-for-profit were working with the data in a way that was really efficient and made sure that it was accessible. We'll come back to that accessible point too. We also expressed caution about kind of over-reliance on AI. There were some early shifts in the nonprofit sector where nonprofits were actually letting folks go. We really were most curious about the program delivery sector, and this was a problem in this area because a resounding theme in our interviews and also in our survey findings was that AI tools must be used as co-pilots, not as replacements. There's this analogy in the tech space of like a centaur or a cyborg. Like, we want centaurs. We want half person using this tool to kind of help and assist with their work. And especially in the program delivery space, that's a really important part of keeping that person-to-person element of your nonprofit mission the main thing. We also talked to a funder. This funder basically worked for a nonprofit that was using an AI bot to sort through 990s and look at all these different nonprofits. And when I brought up bias, they had a really interesting point about how they were using bias for good. They were coming up with trigger words, is what they called, and they would put these words into their machine that signified, elements like systems change that you can't necessarily pull from an I-90, and to try and get around this overhead myth of how are we going to fund nonprofits that are really doing the work, and using that chatbot to basically sort through a bunch of nonprofits, kind of show an array that looked good based on these terms, and then the true importance, having that person there to review to make sure that they're not just saying this, they're doing it too. Next slide, please. With all this research, we were tasked with prompting ideas of tools that Microsoft could come up with that would be helpful for the nonprofit sector. We've got 4 of them listed here. The first one is really related to that anecdote I just talked to you about the funding space, where they already have one that exists that acts as a co-pilot that is just in a very beta form right now, that's searching through 990s, looking for the financials that they're after, looking for sustainability of the nonprofit, and identifying these trigger words. An anecdote in this space was they were looking for one that advocated for women's reproductive health, and they found one that met all the qualifications. It had all the words, the website was beautiful, but this nonprofit was actually, once the person kind of looked through and actually saw the mission, they found that, especially for funders who were hoping to fund like abortion care, abortion rights kind of nonprofits, this nonprofit would actually go around and basically do everything they could other than abortion for the folks that they were serving, despite having all the necessary trigger words on their website. So just really emphasizing the importance of a person in that space to do that final review. Also, with AI in the nonprofit space, a lot of nonprofits have a tight budget. They have a way that works that they've been doing. They are able to get service to the clients that they're actually working with already. So it's like, why would we adopt? That's a problem that I think we were hoping to address. Working with Microsoft to firstly come up with a set of policy guidelines and like areas that AI is encouraged right now, areas where it's not. That's the first step to the second bot, which is like an AI readiness bot that could analyze basically the processes a nonprofit's going through. We see it already in the private sector where consulting firms or other areas are testing out, let's use tools in this administrative level of our work. And they're doing it and they're seeing changes. Well, if we could do something like this in the nonprofit sector, build on that data, identify elements of nonprofits that are similar to nonprofits who have adopted AI tools and seeing successes in that area, that's where we see it fitting, again, in the administrative and funding and that kind of space. Speaking of funding, another element of the nonprofits we analyzed was that they're grant funded. So a lot of these nonprofits rely on someone who's writing grants. We're working with Microsoft here where we write papers all the time for class, and we have this tool on Microsoft which is basically like you press F7, you spell check your paper at the end, and it's just the editor. You can go through, maybe I didn't want a comma there. That's the kind of tool that we're envisioning for this grant grader bot, where it's looking at grants that have been successful, been accepted, and as you get more data on what works in a grant, what doesn't, it'll get better and better and learn and give you, a 98% score on this grant. And then, again, co-pilots here, because someone at the other end who's writing that grant, your grant writer is going to need to make those changes and say, you know what, actually, I do want a comma there. It makes sense for the reader. Most importantly, and this is speaking personally from our research, AI is exploding right now. AI, these automated tools, they run on data. And the thing about data is when you collect it, it normalizes. You're collecting data, you're seeing what should happen here, what often happens here. And oftentimes when you're collecting data on elements that affect people with disabilities, right. So basically this last tool is about analyzing those, taking those measurements, making sure that they're properly weighted in the bots that people are using, making sure that they are not erased, and making sure that tools that Microsoft provides, elevates those either marginalized or folks who have disabilities, those points of view in their work. Thank you.
Share some examples of how you're using it.
Sure. So a couple of examples for UNHCR's use case that are probably more exciting. One would be drones to map informal settlements. Where are people who are fleeing gathering? Are there informal transit places where we can identify to know where to be able to deploy our resources to be able to provide safety and protection, as well as some really cool AI technologies to predict climate disasters and to be an early warning detection system. So again, we know how and where to pre-position those supplies. I'm going to give an example that might not sound like it's super exciting, but stay with me, I promise it is. So at USA for UNHCR, we have an innovation lab. It's called The Hive. And they are one of my strongest partners internally to be able to help drive the decision-making that we make as a fundraising team. So I am our Chief Development Officer, which means that I know enough about the technology to be dangerous. I am not an expert here, but I know what kinds of questions to ask to be able to dig in and say, can we do this, or could we try that? I've worked with our Hive team, the Innovation Lab, on what's called propensity modeling and using machine learning to be able to, once the Ukraine emergency happened and we just exploded with new donors who had never before been part of our organization, the number of what we call mid-level donors, which is anybody from $1,000 to $9,999, that donor file essentially more than doubled in just a couple of months. Well, we have one one person on staff who manages our mid-level file. So we now have tens of thousands of mid-level donors, one person managing all of those donors, and ideally, we will be able to identify which of those donors from the mid-level file are best positioned to be funneled into that potential major giving file that requires a high level of stewardship and cultivation. So by using AI and propensity modeling, our Hive team was able to help us to score and predict which of those mid-level donors were most likely to respond in a positive way to be able to then move into that major giving file, or at least the major giving prospecting file, so we could best prioritize our efforts and know where to go with our limited staff resources. And then the final thing I'll mention, and again, this isn't gonna sound super sexy, but enhancing operational efficiency is how we are using AI right now, and this is through generative AI. We have just launched a really cool technology within our Salesforce CRM called Einstein GPT, and this allows us to take very data-heavy and manual tasks, things like report writing. When we get reports from UNHCR, we have to make them donor-friendly to our US audience because they're written for a global audience. The report might be 98 pages to tell you about why a situation is underfunded. Well, I'm not going to send my donor a 98-page report. They're not going to read it. In fact, most reports that we send, 80% of them are read by 3 total people. So if I'm spending hours and hours and hours of my time, and my team is as well, distilling these reports, reading them, and trying to pull out the information that's most relevant to our donors, imagine if those hours and hours of time could be spent building relationships with our funders, could be spent working with those donors to help them to understand the impact of their gift and really enhancing that operational efficiency. So again, it doesn't sound super sexy, but it's one of the coolest parts of my job. I get to use data to really make better informed decisions and to be able to increase the resources to UNHCR.
So 2 great examples, right? Thank you very much. Yes. So I want to end by just one set of suggestions. Technology is here, AI is here. There's a way to use it. There's a readiness to use it. But how are we inserting ourselves into the conversation as this community? Right now, people that are actually developing this are not thinking of us at all. We're just an afterthought. Even from any other perspective, it is, can this be used by this community? But we are not co-partners, co-creators. We will never be in this. But where can we intervene? And how can we help? There are lots of things that are being developed around AI and ethics, AI and governance. But it's coming from 2 places. The companies themselves that are creating these codes of conduct, or the government that is actually saying, what do we do now to ensure that it's safe for all humanity? Some of our work that we did and our students did, how do we kind of create a community-led digital civil rights? How are we getting part of this conversation where we are actually being proactive, really looking at it from how do we educate the nonprofit sector on the effective use of technology? How are we ensuring there is transparency and accountability? And at the end of the day, how are we are the ones that are going to bring in the community voices, the various names that we saw up all day today, including Mary, who does represent that community of refugees. How are we getting those voices into this conversation? And that's our role. Thank you all very much.
What a great way to end the conference, really forward-thinking and inspirational. And again, what I draw the thread all the way through is it's about us in this room, and it's about relationships. right? Everything we've learned today, whether it's use of technology and AI, I love Lacey's comment of it's a tool to free your time up to do those relationships that matter, the co-creation model of building relationships over maybe 10 years, to really have the right type of funder and recipient relationship. So I hope you learned something today, came away inspired. That's what this is all about. This is about starting the conversation. Oh, exciting. Not ending the conversation. So again, continue the conversations in the Whova app. That'll be for you to use for, I think, 3 months after today. So continue engaging in that. And of course, if you're in Seattle, Global Washington is open for you to engage as well. So I want to do a couple of big thank yous first to my host committee and my planning committee, who's really been working on this for months and months. So thank you to all of you. Also to the volunteers again today, as Akhtar said, fantastic volunteers. But a very, very, very special thank you to my staff, my team. You all have seen Joel throughout the day, who's back here, communications director. Pratima, who is usually not in the room because she's busy at registration. I don't see her right now, but please tell Pratima thank you. And we have this time on our team, and we have Emily Caselin, who has been on loan to us. So please tell her thank you as well as the other volunteers as you see. Okay. Last but not least, we have the final announcement of the winner of the Fast Pitch. That again, we don't have a big pot of money like some Fast Pitch competitions do, but we do have a free ticket next year. So shall we see if Kathleen's bag won out? Let's see. So the winner is, drum roll please. It is Kathleen Davis. It was the bag. So thank you. Although the note says that it was very, very close. So thank you all for the Fast Pitch. That was very, very good. Okay, the last thing is that we have a reception in the hallway. Again, you all have a free drink ticket in the back of your name tag. And if you haven't seen them yet, they were in your bags if you got them, and then they're throughout the hallway. There's a sheet of paper about Global Washington and QR codes for you to get more engaged. It's about our new partnership with Pangea. If you're interested in Pangea and joining Pangea, click on that QR code. There's other ways to learn more about all our members and learn about Global Washington as you're here. So thank you for the beginning. We started with sun, we ended with sun, and now the sun is set. But thank you all for being here today. Thank you for all your work that you do every day. All right, thank you.